Hi everybody, it's Jo from Paint by Jo, and today I would like to show you one of my new favorite art supplies, which is liquid charcoal. Now, what is liquid charcoal? It is a watercolor paint that uses charcoal as the pigment. So you can use it like a paint, but then once it dries, you can treat it like you've applied charcoal to your paper. What I want to do today is kind of show you guys what it looks like, how it feels, and then how it reacts to different kinds of paper. So here we go. So this is what our charcoal paint looks like. It comes in a box like this. Slide it open here and it comes in a 50 ml tube. I did get it for $19.99 Canadian from a store called Desserts. It is also carried on Amazon as well. Now what we're going to do today, I want to test the liquid charcoal on a few different kinds of paper that you might have at home, and then a few that you might not have at home but might be better suited to this medium. So what we're going to be using today is Strathmore charcoal paper, 64 lib. So it's quite thin, but it is made for traditional charcoal. We are also going to be testing it out on Canson. This is just some sketchbook paper. It's 90 lib, so it's not very stiff, but it will be something that is easy to obtain. We're going to try it on some watercolor paper. This is 140 lib, so it is quite thick, and this is made for watercolor. It is made out of paper. So if you work this paper a little bit too much, it will start to break down. My favorite that I found so far to use this on is cotton watercolor paper. So this is again 140 lib, so it is quite stiff. This is archival paper. So whatever art you do on this will last at least 100 years. And this again is my favorite paper to use the liquid charcoal on, but let's do some testing. So now let's take a look and see what the paint looks like. So let's take off our cap here. Then we have our little palette, and let's go. So as you can see, it is quite a thick paint. It does have the consistency of an oil paint or a really thick, heavy body acrylic paint. And we can take our brush and let me just show you. So yeah, it does have the consistency of a very heavy body paint. Now you can apply this directly from the tube and you will get a very dark black, but there is a caveat to that, and I will show you guys later. Now, because this is a watercolor, let's add some water. Let's put some in our palette there, and then let's mix some up with our paint. So as you can see, oh, a little bit got in there. As you can see, it is highly water soluble, and this is how you can thin out your paint and do washes of the color, which is super helpful in painting. I do have a couple examples of works that I have done before as experiments to using the liquid charcoal. All right, so I moved us a little bit closer so we can see how the liquid charcoal reacts on different kinds of paper. So let's start with a really thick paint onto our Strathmore charcoal paper. So as you can see, it goes on quite dark. Let's thin it out a little bit here at the bottom, and then you can see it remains quite dark, and it does carry quite a long way. You can even use a really thin mix if we just use our water here, and this is how you can do a wash of your color. You can already start to see the paper kind of buckling a little bit, and that is going to happen because it is, again, a very thin paper. It is meant for dry charcoal, but you can use it for liquid charcoal. You just have to be a little bit careful and know that the paper will buckle a little bit. So our next paper that we are going to use is our Canson sketchbook paper. So again, let's start off with using quite a thick line of paint to see how it reacts. And again, very nice, very dark, very deep. A little bit does go a long way. So now let's do a wash. And because this paper is a bit thicker, it won't warp and bend as easily. But because it is thin, and again, it is a regular paper, you won't be able to work it very much when it's wet without ruining your paper. So just keep that in mind. The next paper that we're going to try it on is our Artist Loft watercolor paper. And again, this is meant for watercolor work, so it will hold up a lot better than a sketchbook paper will. So we're going to again start off with a nice thick line. It carries very well, and then we will do our wash. So this paper is meant for watercolor, so you will be able to work the paper a little bit more than you would a regular sketchbook paper. So as you can see, I'm re-wetting the same area a couple times, and the paper is holding up beautifully. Our last paper that we are going to test out is my favorite paper to use, whether it's for sketching or for watercolors, is our 100% cotton watercolor paper. So we're going to start with our nice thick paint, and then we will do our wash. So the good thing about 100% cotton paper is, especially if you're doing something professionally and you want it to last, this paper is designed to last over 100 years. It is archival quality, so it doesn't have any acids in it, so it will not yellow over time. So if you're going to use regular paper or sketchbook paper, just know that if you expose it to the elements or expose it to sunlight, it does tend to yellow because of acids in the paper. So here are all 4 of our papers that we used with watercolor. We're going to give them a couple minutes to dry, and then I'll show you how you can smudge and treat the dried charcoal paint like you would any dry charcoal medium. So we'll be back in a couple minutes. Alright guys, so now let's see how the charcoal behaves after it's dried. So as you can see here, it does blend out. It is a little bit harder to get rid of that paint line if you do a thicker line of paint, but over here where we have our thinner kind of just wash of charcoal, it is a lot easier to kind of get rid of the paint marks and to blend everything together. Let's see how our Canson sketchbook paper behaves. So as you can see, we started to blend this out a little bit. It does blend out, but you still can see that line from the paint. Now let's try our wash of color. So again, it blends a little bit easier when you have the wash of color. So this paper also not as bad as the other one, but the sketchbook paper also does get kind of worked when you use it with the watercolor paint. Now let's take a look at our Artist Loft watercolor. Again, let's start off with our darker line here. So again, it does blend quite well, but you do still get that line. You might want that. You might be able to use that to your advantage, depends on what kind of piece you're doing. And then here on our wash side, again, we can blend it a little bit easier. Now our last one, our cotton watercolor paper. Let's see. So here we're blending. Again, blends out. Super easy, but you do still get that line that stays there. And here we're blending out our wash. So now, as you can see, it does blend out quite well on all of our watercolor paper, but for the 100% cotton paper, there is absolutely no bending of the paper. It stays nice and flat because it is meant to be used for watercolor paint. And you can still draw on this using charcoal. It's not just for watercolor. As I said, it's archival quality, so it's one of the best papers to use. If we take a look at our Artist Loft watercolor paper, again, it really doesn't have a whole lot of warping or bending, maybe just a little bit, but it is still a really good option for you to use. And guys, one other thing I do want to mention, if you are going to be using the liquid charcoal with regular charcoal, a thing to note is that the liquid charcoal is a little bit warmer in tone than a stick charcoal is going to be. So if you're going to be doing artwork with it, I suggest that you blend both of them together. You can layer charcoal on top of the liquid charcoal as well to get really, really deep blacks. And you can blend this out over the liquid charcoal and it creates nice depth, which is what I've done in the couple sketches that I've shown you already. So you can use these together. Just keep in mind that the liquid charcoal is a warmer tone. Here is the artwork that we are going to be doing, just to show you guys what the liquid charcoal looks like when we do use it. So here we're going to apply a nice wash of the color. So this is our little wine glass here. As you can see, it behaves just like a watercolor. You can darken up some areas just by using a little bit thicker paint. And it is quite easy to get nice gradients. Just make sure that you do work quickly so that it doesn't dry on the paper before you have a chance to work with it. The great thing about this is, again, because it is a watercolor, you can reactivate the liquid charcoal if it has dried, 1 on your paper or 2 on your palette. If you're like me, I don't like to waste anything. So if the paint dries on my palette, I can just use it again the next time I feel like painting. Just add some water, mix it up a little bit, and voila, it's ready to go. I will say though, once it is dry on the paper, and once you've even had a chance to work with it by using a blending stump or your finger or however you want to blend it out, it is very hard to erase from the paper. So if you do want one of the areas of your painting or your drawing to remain white, I don't recommend putting even a wash of color on it to be able to use an eraser. It won't work very well. I have tried, not very well. So just keep that in mind if you are going to be trying this. So here we're just gonna blend out a couple areas to just show you guys how you can elevate your artwork using our liquid charcoal. And there we have it. There is our finished work. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you guys do try out liquid charcoal, leave me a note down below and tell me how you liked it. All right, have a great day.